I'd like to call the May 1st meeting of the Tree Advisory Commission to order. We don't have the minutes from last month's meeting, so we can skip over that. The second item on the agenda is public comments.
My name is Sue Campbell and I live on 47 West 4th Street. And I'm interested in having a tree put in front of my house. I used to have a tree and it was cut down like 3 or 4 years ago before COVID because it was sick. And I never had a tree replaced. So I'm interested in having a tree put in and hopefully somebody can get back to me about what I need to do.
What is your address again?
47 West 4th Street.
So if you go on the website, have you tried going into the city's website?
I called into the city before and I wasn't sure about which form needed to be filled. I wrote a letter to you guys,
Okay.
but I never filled the form out.
Okay, so we can take care of that. So we'll submit an official application on your behalf with your permission,
Okay,
and then we'll get it on next month's agenda.
okay, sounds good. Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yes, Bill Gross, 1301 13th Street. Just want to congratulate all of you and thank you for all the work you're doing. It's making a difference. And in about 10 years, your fruits of your labor will be surely more appreciated by more people. But in the meantime, every time I pass by any of the trees with the watering bags, I just go, wow, wow. So thank you all.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. Any other public comments from the floor? Let's go into old business. We have application 2023-08, Mary Cannon, 704 Tremont Street. It's a pruning request. We had discussed this last month. That's the property that the tree is actually on the railroad's property. At Tremont Street, there is a dead end. It's a dead end right before the tracks between 7th and 8th. So it is not on city land. And so from what I can see, this is something that they're gonna have to deal with the railroad with somehow. New business, application 2023-09, Joanna Smith, 124 East 4th Street. Remove and replace, the tree is dead. I have not seen a photo of this. Has anybody?
I have one.
There should be a photo
I just
attached.
took it today.
Are you Joanna?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me show you. It's
Not that I don't believe your tree is dead.
really dead. Find the picture. Yeah, it was not quite so dead last year, but it's really
Is there
good.
a photo in the application?
Yeah, here.
There should be on the last page. Yeah, no, that was the machine. I apologize.
Oh, very good. So you are right
I would
down
take it
4th
there.
Street.
That's in front of the house that's for sale. This guy has the sign up there.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
sold. I'm the next door neighbor.
Okay, yeah, I drove
Yeah.
by.
Yeah, so nobody has moved in yet. So I'm actually giving them a gift. This is the extent to get the tree taken down. It was not quite dead last year, but it's really dead now. And so it really is pretty much of an eyesore and it's kind of dangerous. There are like kind of wires going through it and we don't want to. And we're hoping to replace it.
Is this tree next to Laura Fontana's? I believe she has a honey locust out in front of her house, and then is this the tree just prior to it going up the one-way street?
It's 124 East 4th. I'm 126. At 128, there is a tree that's,
Okay,
yeah, but this one is like, I'm at 126 and at 124, this is the tree right.
on the other side there, yeah.
It's really dead.
Well, no offense, I don't mean to butt in on you, but there was a request made years ago,
Mhm.
maybe 3 or 4, by Laura Fontana, not an official one, but she was asking if this could come out. Her tree,
Right,
and it's past its prime and it's dropping dew heavily.
Mhm. right, right.
And I only raised the point, Walter, because maybe this is something that could be done conjointly. If one is dead and then the other one is causing problems, it might be something to consider as a fair. Did you make this request before?
Well, there's 2 trees. There's one, like I said, I'm at 126.
Right,
And at 128, there's a tree,
right,
and 124, there's a tree. I think they're both the same species. I don't know what the species is.
Yeah.
And I know my neighbor at 128 has made requests to have the tree trimmed. This is the one that's at 128.
right.
So
is 128 on the corner? I mean, is that?
no, this is in the middle of the block.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Between
Yeah, okay.
Harmony and Chestnut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, it was the one at 128 last summer, there was a big huge wasp's nest or something.
Yeah.
Over it, and I believe that, we were concerned because the trash truck comes down, if they hit this thing, it would be terrible for them.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess they came out and they snipped that one off.
Yeah.
But this is the tree that's at 124.
Right.
Um,
Thank you,
I'm
kindly.
in the middle.
Yeah.
And 124 is the one, and then the house sold, they said the house sold, but there's nobody living there yet.
Right.
I think this is a period, you think that's something the city can look at, see if it's
So
possible?
certainly take a look at it.
Yeah.
I can't place where this tree is, so first thing tomorrow morning, I think I'd have to take a look at it.
My only concern is it have wires going through it, electric wires. It looks like in the photo that the wires are going right through the branches.
They are coming through, of course, now we're in a situation where it's now become somewhat of a crisis because the tree is dead. I mean, if it comes down, it might take these wires out with it. I'm gonna, unfortunately, I think the tree is just, it was probably too big to be put there in the first place with the wires.
Right.
I'm hoping that we can replace it with something smaller, like the neighbor up the street has a hawthorn. Like something like a dogwood or a redbud, something like that, that's not gonna get so big, not so tall.
Yeah, the trees we're planting right now along Delaware Street are all going to be 20 to 30 feet tall. at
Oh, okay.
Max, much, not as, they're not gonna be as big around, they're not gonna be,
Mhm.
so yeah, they're planting with that intention. So that we.
Right, I mean, it has to be something that's not gonna get big because it's.
We have a list of approved.
Right, exactly. I think those are, I was looking at their list. of approved ones. I thought it'd be nice to have something that had little flowers on it, pretty, but something that wasn't gonna get so big.
So what we'll do is, we'll all take a look at it, including the city, and we'll make a decision about whether it's something the city, it would make it much easier if the city can do the work, to remove the tree.
Oh,
So that would be
absolutely.
our first priority.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, yes.
so we'll look at that and we will have an answer for you at some point, in your application. Is there?
Should be, I can give it to you again if you want.
I think it's usually a part of the application.
Right.
I just want to make sure we contact. Yep, okay.
Okay.
So one of us will get back.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
No other applications to discuss? Feel like we had some old business that didn't get put forward.
The only one that they told me about was for Miss Cannon. That was the only one that
Okay.
they told me we would be up there still.
But I know that we have, there was an application to put, to remove the, honey locust that's down in front of the 200 block of Delaware Street. All right, so that was an application that we had seen last month that didn't get pushed forward for some reason.
I apologize.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not your fault. So that would be something that we have to look at as well. It's along the Delaware Street, part of the Gateway project. The point of removing the tree is that it's already disturbing the bricks around it. It's a very narrow walkway in that area. And we would like to replace it with one of the trees that to be consistent with what we have been doing with the Gateway project. So that was, and I don't have the number, so we're gonna have to push that forward until we have that information again. Probably could find it here.
I'll look to your.
Yeah. Member comments, discussion. Do you have anything, Mr. Davison? This keeps getting pushed forward, but that's all already taken care of, isn't it?
Which one?
The pruning pamphlet,
Oh, we already took care of that. Yeah.
that's done. The DFS grant, we were granted the grant, and so we will be receiving that money. There are some final steps that we have to make to, actually get the money sent to us, but we're well on the way with that. On last Friday, April 28th, we celebrated Arbor Day, met by the courthouse. The mayor came, city council president, Bill Barthel, our city administrator, and a couple of TAC members, and we celebrated the Arbor Day, 150th anniversary of Arbor Day, but also our celebration for almost completing the Gateway project. We're just about done. So the Gateway project, for those who don't know, is they have the Tree Advisory Commission and the city have worked from Ferry Cutoff Road and all the way down to the wharf and planted trees all throughout. Especially the part of Sixth Street down near Ferry Cutoff, or between Ferry Cutoff and Fifth, and it was completely void of trees, and now there are 25 trees in that area. So and they all bloomed at the same time this spring. So it was awesome.
Carl, may I just update that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely.
Very cut off to the battery, there are 80 new trees.
80 new trees. That's the magic number. So that's amazing. And we, as somebody said earlier, I think Mr. Gross said, we're doing this for the future of our city, and it's starting to look beautiful already. We had tree watering plan. We have finalized the plan. I met with the city and we drove around, and Rick Delgado and I drove around, looked at all the different trees that we have in the city. Some of them have been planted 2 or 3 years ago, and then all the new trees that we have planted this season. Most of them have water bags and they're getting watered on a regular basis. And we have, the city has a very good plan, and they have been following through, and it's been great. We also have a volunteer who is willing to, she's going to be watering 25 of the trees to alleviate some of the pressure from the city to do all of the trees that we have to be watered right now. So the watering plan is well underway. And Mother Nature just helped us this weekend with a very nice, steady rain. So, and the Tree City inventory that is still a project that has not begun, but that is something that we're now that we've gotten some of these other things out of our way, I'll be pushing forward on that.
Carl, if you would, regarding that, I've pretty much mapped out where all the 170 new trees are that TAC has put in the last almost 7 years. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if starting with that as a base might, give you more impetus to take on the whole town.
Absolutely.
It's a big project.
It is, and that would be a great base, a great starting point. So we will get together and talk about that for sure.
Have you thought about getting like a college student from U of G to do that?
I talked to, I had a meeting with Bill Barthel, and we talked about the possibility of hiring summer, like an intern or summer help in this, and they have discussed it, but I don't believe there's been anything moving
I was
forward.
thinking just,
Like
you
a
know,
volunteer?
well, they would take credit for it.
Oh, through UD?
Yeah.
You have a contact for them?
Sue Barton,
That's a great idea. All right, I will contact her and see about that. Thank you. Any miscellaneous items? Ron?
I'm just wondering, Sheila, do you have everything you need for your volunteer hours for the DFS grant?
No, I don't have anything for the. When we have to start collecting hours, once we get the approval of the grant, so I don't have anything.
Well, the grant has been approved, the trees have been put in. Gateway has submitted a bill for the,
Mhm.
for the bid they put in. I think Diane Delgado has that, Marika, so.
The data that would need to be collected would be the names of the volunteers, the hours
I have all
and the
that,
dates. Yeah, no, I don't have that. No, I don't know if who's going to be doing that.
right?
We need to check with Carl here.
Yeah, well,
I'm only mentioning it because it needs to be there, but also you had asked me at one time how many volunteer hours were put in last year.
I have that,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
Right, and I don't remember whether I gave you the specifics or if I gave you month by month.
You would give it to me sometimes a couple weeks at a time, sometimes in a month at a time.
Okay,
That it doesn't matter. I would just update the spreadsheet.
Right.
But I was hoping maybe somebody else could do that this year since I did it last year.
Right.
But we'll see. But it's just a simple thing. They have the spreadsheet. You just
Right. Good,
put it
thank
in.
you, thank you, I appreciate it.
Mhm. And I have last year's too, if somebody wanted to take a look at that.
Right. But you're fine, Carl, I think we only need 5,000 hours, and I think we have,
Yeah.
like 18,000, something like that.
Well, I don't think we'd have any trouble hitting the target. We were well over last year. We had multiple.
We quadrupled what was
Yeah.
required, and,
Yeah.
we also have to think about budget items for our request for the city. So as a commission, if you would each think about some of the things that we need to or would like to try to get done with budget money.
I believe that the deadline is April 5th or April 4th. It's this week. So we would have to do this, excuse me, May 5th. May 4th, May 5th this week. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I just did it for the garden club. That's why I know. So it is, the deadline is this week sometime, I think, toward the end of the week, so. It would have to be done quickly.
Well, Ron sent an email out last night with some suggestions. So if everybody would look at it and give us your input, then that would be, we'll put something together and get it to them as soon as possible.
There's a form, a specific form that has to be filled out.
Okay, and get that at the city.
Yes, it was sent to me by the person who did it last year for the garden club.
Okay.
So the city had contacted her and asked if she was going to do it again this year, request. So that's where I got it from. So I would imagine we could get that form at the city. Yeah, it should be an electronic.
Okay. I will look into that. Anybody have anything else for the good of the mission? Yes, sir.
Now that Delaware Street is largely planted, except for the 6th Street, the Route 9. What are you kind of planning next? Are you going to hopscotch around the city, or do you have another major area where you're gonna try and replant?
That's what I think we've been referring to as our 5-year plan. And we need to, this plan has been 3 or 4 years. So now we need to move forward and come up with a new plan. And at this point, the plan is to plant trees as needed around the city. and where we can. We don't have a formal plan, so that's something else that we need to work on and get something set.
It would just be easier if you were doing a major street, just because if the city has to drive all over the water as opposed to stretch like Delaware Street, it's
Right.
very time consuming.
Yes, it is. Actually, when we drove around, I was talking to Rick about the time and it's an all-day process and sometimes 2 days, depending on how many guys he has or his availability of the work of the crew that he has. So, yeah, it's a big job. And that's why we have our volunteer helping out to alleviate some of that pressure. But you're right, any other additional new trees is going to put more and more strain. The good news is that we have trees that are going to be aging out in the next year or two. They're, the trees that we have that are been in the ground for 3 years, some of them are going to be at a point where we don't need to have a bag on them and they can let nature take its course. You agree with that? I mean, so we need to work on, that should be an item on the agenda for, the next, the 5-year plan is something we really need to start nailing down.
Carl,
Yes, sir.
and if I could just follow up on that, we've written a couple of these annual reports to city council requesting funding for the next year. As you know, this is the third one that we're doing. And I don't know if you had a chance to really look at the request we've made, but it's a little bit open-ended, and I was wondering what's the rationale for asking for even the same amount of money that we had last time? And I think what Norman is suggesting, which I think is a great idea, and not just be thinking about a 5-year plan, but have a 5-year plan in place. So at this kind of pivotal moment, when we finished one project, but we don't know what the other one is, I think it's important to have it. So when you go asking for the money, there is a rather cogent plan, even year by year. Otherwise, you're just going in and saying, would you please give us the same amount of money that you gave us last time? And they can say, well, you're done with your project, right? You went all the way up, you did your gateway project. I don't see anything here that's the kind of thing that I'm a bit concerned about.
All right, well then that adding to our little work that we need to do to think about the budget, we need to think about a 5-year plan as well. And within the next couple of days, and I will talk to Ron and we'll see if we can get that together before the end of the week as well.
And I'm sure Norman has some great ideas about what could be folded into that too. What did I?
Thanks, Ron.
Threw him under the bus.
God, as long as we're doing volunteers, right, we just kind of take them out of the audience.
Well, it might be something to consider a major thoroughfare in and out of the city. Something, take another major
Or
street.
even if you did a block with no trees on it and just did one whole block, a dozen trees, up to 20 trees, it's easier for the city to go there.
Right,
And if there's a water outlet volunteer can use, that just makes it a whole lot easier. Because you only have one block left on Delaware Street to do.
Well, the west side of the city is in dire need in some trees, almost the entire west side.
Right.
So if you went down 3rd, 4th, and 5th alone, that whole section. Actually, there's many vacant tree pits in that area from trees that have been taken down. So that might be our plan. That might be what we need to focus on.
I think that's a great thing to think about. And then when we just did this quick inventory for this little thing that I put together, it's quite clear that we only have planted 9 trees on the west side. That means we have about 100 and well, if you don't count the Delaware Street, if you're just looking at the east side, we probably planted maybe close to 90 trees on that side and 6 trees on the other side. So you might be getting people saying, what about us? Ma'am, that's you. And this time around, I think we got one in for Alice Rio at 61 on Fourth, and you probably are very close to her.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very sticky wicket, getting into it, but some of this has evolved, ma'am. This is not even though this committee has been here for decades, many of these ideas have just, kind of been dealt with haphazardly. And that's because we've shifted from taking trees down to also putting them in. And so consequently, this is not a perfect process, but we'll get better at it. And thank you much for coming in and explaining your situation to us.
I think we've already gotten better at it.
Well, there's no question about it. I just didn't want to sound like, we were bragging in any way.
I talked about something about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when this problem with the watering came out in the first. And this is probably a perfect time to look for one vehicle or a couple vehicles, small, not cars or trucks, but there's some battery powered little, kind of golf cart type stuff, but they're more powerful. They can, they've been used on the road. You can do anything with them. And we could then, if we had areas that don't have any water available to it, we could put a tank on the back and we'd be free. And if we had 2 of them, then it would be, it's possible we could get a couple of people that were volunteering and get that done and maybe relieve some of the pressure that we're under when this happens.
That's a great idea.
And I think that I don't think it'll cost a lot of money.
All right, any other miscellaneous items?
I did have a quick team question. I brought it up a few months ago about the pots, the concrete planters. And you had referred that there was a beautification committee floating somewhere. I brought it up at city council, and if you can imagine what deer in headlights look like, they didn't seem to have a clue or a recommendation, or even I'll look into it.
Because they didn't know.
Well, it wasn't part of the city, it was
Right.
a different committee.
And Gene Dempsey died, so that's why it's.
It's been disbanded. It's
no
longer gone. As a matter of fact.
I mean, I don't think it's something we can't get, but we do.
I saw someone put flowers in.
Yeah, the city does.
Well, that's
Yeah, they got.
because, again, the schedule just came out for the Kalmar Nickel coming into Newcastle. And if you would at least discuss it amongst yourselves next meeting, what you can do to work something in.
I mean,
Are you want to plan it?
it's been planted.
Oh, they are?
There's flowers there as we speak. Yeah,
Okay.
and they've been there for at least
Years?
a month or so.
Oh.
I think Mr. Barthel took an initiative to have it planted, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And I think Johnny Antonio. So at least for the president,
Okay.
there's flowers.
Sorry.
No, these are the containers at the battery? or-
Yes, the ward.
The ward.
Yeah.
Because I just sent him a email today suggesting that I'm not going to be doing the containers in the middle of the town. There were 10 of them there
The ones up the courthouse.
around the courthouse, all the way down to the Opera House. And I've been doing those for the last 3-4 years, and then I think it's time to turn the responsibility over in another direction. Those containers are quite old. They're almost 40 years old and many of them are made out of concrete, so they've got cracks and they leak and everything. And I was just suggesting that this may be an opportunity to have those containers retired. These were put in by Kirsten Almquist and L.A. Cleveland close to 40 years ago, two of the best gardeners that this town has probably ever had. And so I was doing it, primarily in their honor. Both have deceased. And so maybe it is an opportunity just to move out and then to suggest that 23 containers might be beyond the capacity of the city. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's a city council question, right? But they haven't had to deal with it because people have been doing it and helping. I think even some of the containers down by the wharf were handled by the very end of the beautification committee. I think Gene Dempsey was the last one.
The end is when I decide to tell them that I'm not doing it, because right now it's been handed to me,
Okay,
as well as a few other things that Gene was doing, so
okay.
with all the stuff I've had going on, it's been kind of.
Well, I think if it's to continue, that committee has to be officially formed and be given a budget. Right, because, it's an expensive, whim, just to keep doing it.
Yeah, because besides Calmar Nickel, I know Council Barthel, and for that matter, the police chief have said that any city-wide events, instead of on Delaware Street by the courthouse, they want for security and crowd control, they want to push it down towards that circle. So in the city, obviously you have plantings, you have ground trees, but down there, that's the only way to get anything. So if there's a way, at least maybe not the 20 up there, but at least I guess there's what, and it's a wharf.
There are 13 at the wharf and 10 in the middle of the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, see what you can do, but it seems like Furio must have been like the city's alpha planted in the last week since I was there last. Thank you, Furio.
No, listen, it's been at least, I noticed them at least a month ago. I was out all last week and but I go by there every day, and I was told that they planted some flowers and all that. Who's maintaining them? That part I don't know.
Well, regarding TAC, the only thing you don't want to have happen is somehow those containers are attributed to you. And that any watering that occurs suddenly appears on your list where you don't have 80 trees you're watering, but suddenly you have over 100.
Yeah, we talked about that in the meeting.
That's happened before,
As of right now, that's not part of the
Good.
plan. Okay, anybody else? I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Oh, before you do that, I didn't realize we were at the end of it.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple of trees to take a quick look at.
We
No.
talk about the
The honey locust.
Donnie Locust? Yeah, we talked about that in the beginning of the meeting.
At the beginning. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so that application was not forwarded to us in this packet, nor was it included in the agenda.
Right, but it was on the agenda 2 months ago.
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So,
These aren't new trees in any way.
no,
But could I make one suggestion? When we were at the Arbor Day thing, at the very end, the head of city council, Mr. Platt, was talking to Carl and me, and he suggested that this was a committee they had a lot of complaints about, but that but he was also thanking us for our volunteer work in it. And I was just wondering if it would be kind of a nice opportunity for everyone. If Mr. Platt could come here and talk to you a little bit about the complaints they've been getting, and then, whether or not we could do something about it and improve it. I'm not thinking of it as any punitive kind of thing. I'm just thinking of it as a opportunity to share ideas. Because I hear some complaints, but I hear many positive, reflections on what you all are really trying to do. So if he could speak to that and, we could all learn from it in a way. I think that would be a nice thing, yeah. In the many years I've been involved in this, I don't ever recall anyone from city council who is our sponsor. They give the money to make this thing run. I've never seen a person from city council come here, and maybe it's just they've never been invited. Like Suzanne Sauter, I'm sure would enjoy spending some time with us, so just a thought.
I've invited my neighbor, Andrew,
Wonderful. I think it's a great idea.
you know what, and I think Carl and I discussed this a couple months ago. And the problem is not that we're not doing anything, but the people don't know what we are doing.
Okay.
And I think the only way to make that happen and to make people realize what the people that we help know.
Right.
The people that we don't show up at their house and do stuff, or if we have an issue, they don't know. And they're not, they figure, oh, well, they're not doing anything for me, so they're not doing anything. We have to get involved. We've got to get the paper involved. We've got to get anything that goes out in front of the people that live here should be looking every week or at least every month of and I actually went to the office and talked to somebody about it, but they hadn't come back to me. But we've got to it's just like a business. What we're selling is goodwill, because with goodwill comes more money and more stuff that we can do that'll satisfy you.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more we're going to be. And I tell you the truth, I think the more people might say, oh, you know what? They have a budget and it's not that much. Maybe we need to help too.
Well, so many of them have. So many people in the community have stepped up and like gal here tonight, yes, I want a tree, and in many instances they're saying, and I'm happy to pay for it. And we've had many contributions. And for the trees for historic Newcastle, we had a $5,500 contribution this year. So in addition to your DFS money, we've essentially matched that, had some money from the trustees. So I think people are reaching out, and as I mentioned to Carl earlier, we have 20 people on the list who would like a tree on the front of the house. And 2 or 3 years ago, it was, I would say, right around 1 or 0. So I think you're right, Scott, as you do more and people see the contribution that you're trying to make, I think people have been very generous in the community in stepping up.
So could I also say that putting the agenda in the weekly was a good idea, or at least from my perspective, so I could see what's being covered.
I can tell you as a resident and attending your meetings and bringing up the planters, as part of that, I also said this committee is one of the most responsive and accessible committees compared to all of the others that I've attended. So as a suggestion, maybe you can write something up and put in the paper, but also one of you show up at the meeting and say, on behalf of, I'd like to give you a couple minutes insight and invite anyone to our meetings or to talk to me after the meeting, because I love you guys and I've never asked for a trade. Plants, which Furio was nice enough to plant. They're plastic, so.
So Matt Alexander, who does town topics, was at the Arbor Day celebration photo shoot, and he took some photos, and he's going to be posting an article in the town topics, which is you're not familiar with kind of all the interesting things that are going on in Newcastle. He promotes, it's online, of course. I also talked to Terry Buchanan. Terry unfortunately was in Delaware City that the day of our celebration, doing their Arbor Day celebration. So I didn't get to her early enough apparently. So I'll work on that next year, but I also have sent her the information that we talked about at the Arbor Day celebration, and we have talked about, as a commission, we've talked about writing articles on a regular basis.
Right.
And that's something maybe that we can each take on, maybe take on this month, just talk about what we have been doing. I think it's a great idea. And I run across many people in town who don't truly understand how the Tree Advisory Commission works, and I think everybody's right in talking about the idea that we need to promote ourselves maybe a little better. It's a great idea. I'm all for it.
But I can honestly say I've never heard anything negative.
You would be
Did you
surprised.
hear?
And I get out to talk to people a lot.
Well, I'm sure that you do, because I know I see you everywhere. Every meeting, wherever you're like, you have a magnet. But I've heard a lot of bad things about us, and it's not true. That all we do is sit around and talk about it. I'm telling you, I've had people say that. And I told them, you come to a meeting and you'll see that's not what they never came to the meeting, so. But at the same time, I mean, we have to, it's like I say, we have to show them every week or every month or whatever, that they can look in there and see what the tree committee is doing. That's the only way to make them understand why we have our jobs.
Well, and Scott, we've just planted 30 brand new trees. Closer to 40, 20 along the main street, 20 in the general community. I think that's a lot of evidence. I mean, you can write a lot of things on paper, but you still have to perform.
Well, that's what I said before.
And to put in 170 trees, basically in a few years is, I think, quite a feat in itself.
Well, and I think people think that they just pop up.
I don't think they recognize that they're there. They, oh, geez, I never saw that tree. Well, I can't understand why I just saw that.
Somebody bought it and it popped up,
That's it.
but you're right, that they don't connect.
Unless they run into it, they don't know it's there.
Sir? Sure.
Just a quick, I should have probably mentioned it earlier, but the city took a call this morning from a Florence Smith who lives at number 6 Booker Circle.
Oh,
She had concerns about her tree. I had spoken to her right before I went on vacation, and she wanted some help in taking that tree down. It's on private property, clearly. I have pictures of it. It does need to come down. I can definitely like. I'm for that next to
friendly local arborist.
So, and I suggested to her that if the determination is that it has to come down, that she would have to get it on her own. And I volunteered to give her some, name the numbers of people that we use.
Yeah.
So if anyone else reaches out, she already knows, and I'll get back with her and let her know that we're not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, I looked on it, on the Google Maps and pulled up the picture. It's a big tree in their front yard.
Clearly, it's on private property.
Thank you. I forgot about that. Now, anybody would like to move for adjournment?
Carl, if you'd be kind enough to follow up with Mr. Platt and make sure he gets an opportunity to, really wish.
It's on my list of things to
Bless
do.
your heart, thank you kindly. Yeah.
That's
I'll second.
second. Meeting adjourned.